Hello, welcome. It's the Resilient Rooster. I'm back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today I'm going to be showcasing Zefra. So Zefra is a pendulum-based deck. They have a lot of good search cards, which makes the deck a little bit consistent. It does lose to Drone Lock, but you have Designator from the Grave to counter it. My Zefra deck is based on making True Kings of all Calamities, so this is just my taste on the deck. There's a lot of ways that you can play this deck, and my trap lineup for this deck is basically the 9 pillars, the Zefra Divine Strike, and the Zefra War. I play these traps basically to stun my opponent or to get rid of some problematic cards. So this is my deck profile. Feel free to change it, and let's get around to the replays. So in this first replay, I'm playing against Pendulum Magician, and the ideal board is you want to summon the True King of all Calamities. And to do that, you usually need a Dark Worm. That way you can search the gate 0, so that you can Pendulum summon any card, not just Zefra cards, because Zefra, they're kind of restricted on what you can pendulum summon. So when I summon Electrum, I set my Performable Pal Odd-Eye Synchron, and you're going to use this card later. So what you want to do is get Zefraxi and Zefranu. That way you can make a level 9 Synchro, and the best one's going to be Saber Gotums. That way you can, snipe a card out of your opponent's hand. You're going to use the Odd Eyes card to basically special summon your Gate 0 to make the other level 9 Cloud Castle. And that basically makes you have the True King of Calamities. So this is basically the easiest way you can summon the True Kings of all Calamities, and it's pretty consistent. So my opponent, they couldn't really do much since they can't attack, and I called Dark, so they couldn't really do much. And after that, I was able to get Yazi off. And Yazi has a cool effect where it can special summon from the deck. And here I'm just getting the Mare tokens. And this is basically enough to basically make the Skull Dread if you wanted to. So I chose to make the Skull Dread. I draw 4 cards, but there's a lot of routes you can take after that. And basically at this point, I have a lot of link arrows, so I was able to do like a lot of things. And I think at this point, I made Trishula. So I made Trishula, and I basically sniped out a card, and I also have like 3 negates, so it's pretty cool. So all I do is just attack, and it's game. In most of these replays, I had access to Dragon Shrine, and if you don't have access to Dragon Shrine, you would like to terraforming to make, or to get the Dragon Ravine to send the Dark Worm. Dark Worm basically starts your combos, and without Dark Worm, this deck is kind of a little bit harder to play, since it's kind of hard to make the Electrum without Pendulum summoning. And you want to save your Pendulum summon until you have Link Arrows. So once you get the Link Arrows, you're basically free to go, and you can just go off. So there, I just Pendulum summoned 5 cards, and that's something that you don't really see that often. So I was able to basically make my combo with the Saber Gotums. I would snap the card, did the same thing, Cloud Castle revives, and when I used Oracle of Zefra earlier, I was able to stack the top card of my deck, and I was able to draw the Ash from the Electrum. So that was a very good interaction. I was able to get basically a counter trap card and a hand trap. My opponent, they already know that I have the counter trap, so they can't use a Raigeki. And all I have to do now is at least try to get rid of the Buguska. I couldn't get rid of the Buguska, so I just made the Zefra Metatron to attack over it. And I think it was worth it because I still had some negates. I was able to basically make another Pendulum summon. That way I could get an additional negate on top of the previous one. So now I have 3 negates. And I made the Buguska just to ensure that I can win the duel. My opponent only had a terraforming, and all I had to do was just grind them down. So I got rid of that. They try to use Raigeki on 9 pillars. So when Zefranu leaves the field, you basically can search a card. So you want to search the Zefra Providence. You could search the Zefra War, but since I don't have 2 Zefra cards, I might as well just search the Providence and save it for later. I would say one of the weaknesses of this deck, it really relies on Dark Worm. Without Dark Worm, it's kind of hard to get 2 Pendulum monsters on board, and it's a problem. I would say once Needle Fiber comes out, it'll be a little bit easier to play, since it's easier to get a tuner than to get 2 Pendulum monsters in this deck. So my next plan was basically to make a Buguska and hopefully stall. My opponent is playing Cubics, so hopefully they don't really have a good extra monster or extra deck card to out my Electrum Knight. So they basically just summoned the Cubic Lord and set the Mount of the Bound Creator and basically pass. So I was kind of lucky. So my next plan was basically, hopefully, to get rid of both of these cards and get a good field. So I basically got rid of the Buguska to basically get a good Pendulum Summon. That way I could basically make Yazi and get rid of the Mount of the Bound Creator. I think looking back, I probably should run a Borlo Dragon because it's a good beat stick monster and it's kind of easy to make with this deck since you can just use it, make a Mare and basically get into it. So I basically try to slowly try to establish a board and try to get a better hand. I do have 2 cards in the extra deck, so my Zefra Divine Strike is live at this point. And at this point, they only have 4 cards and I have 2 negates. So I felt really confident, but they actually had another Crimson Nova. So I was a little bit scared, but I got things taken care of. Because if they try to attack again, I can finally negate it. So I was kind of in good condition at this point. They only have 1 card in hand, so I was very confident that I was going to win this one. But like I said, it's a lot difficult to play this deck if you don't have a Dark Worm. I do have a Dragon Shrine, but to get a Dark Worm on the field, you basically have to have no monster. But I was trying to figure out ways to get rid of or to knock them out to 0, so I did a lot of questionable plays, but in the end, they worked out. In this deck, I run 3 Dragon Shrine, 1 Dragon Ravine, and 1 Dark Worm. I think that this is the perfect number, since you can only special summon 1 Dark Worm if you control no monsters on the field. So I think 1 is just good enough. If you ever can get the Electromite combo off, you usually win the game. So I would say that you could probably switch this Ghost Augur to Designator from the grave. That way you can stop the hand traps that tries to stop your Electromite from going off. Because once you basically get to the Pendulum part where you Pendulum summon everything, your combos usually just play themselves out and you basically can make the True King of all Calamities. And this basically stops them for like the whole turn. And accidentally misplayed by putting the Zefra Divine Strike in a Pendulum part. So I was kind of mad about myself from that. But it didn't matter in the end since I was able to basically bait out the Infernoid card by just using the Strudel. They tried to negate it, but I was able to negate it, and now they basically have like no cards on the field. My goal now is basically to hopefully attack them for a game, but I didn't have enough damage. I believe I was 600 off, so they were able to survive for 1 more turn. They do have the grass looks greener, but good thing I saved the Ash for that. 60 cards this deck is pretty scary for most decks since they have a lot of resource when everything gets set to the grave. So at this point, I'll basically use my Yazi just to get rid of cards on the field. That way I could just attack directly. I probably should have just attacked directly here since they didn't have 7 cards for Fairy Tail Snow, but I decided just to mess around and see what I can do. But I think I just basically tried to see what I drew before I attacked for game, because I'm pretty sure I was just being fancy at this point. All I have to do is just attack. In this last replay, I'm playing against Trickstars, and they get to go first. And looking at their hand, it looks like they have 2 disruption. They have the strike and they have the reincarnation. I assumed since they searched the Licorice that they had the reincarnation already, so I had to play around it. So I tried to Dragon Shrine immediately because I don't want that card to get reincarnated, but they ashed that. So at this point, it was kind of like a downhill battle. Since I didn't have Dragon Shrine, I basically had to figure out a way to play around this. I kind of got lucky that they reincarnate me and I drew the Dark Worm, so it helped me recover a little bit. I was able to basically search my trap cards so that way I could get rid of their back rows. So instead of going off even more, I just set my cards and pass, and hopefully my back row can stall for 1 turn. I do have the highest card or highest monster since it's 1800. Trickstars, they're not known for like their high attack, so I was sort of at an advantage at this point. My opponent only has like 1 card in hand, so I felt super confident. I made the Electrum. I basically tried to get a good Pendulum Summon off. I was able to change the chain links, that way I was able to add the cards. But I should have added the trap card since my Zefra Providence got ashed. but I don't think it would have mattered since I was able to make the Golems, and Golems is a big 3100. And I don't think at this point making the True King of all Calamities wouldn't really do much since they don't have any cards in their hand, so I think that it's a waste. So at this point I was just trying to figure out, you know, what the back row was. I was gonna try to send like one of the Teller Knight cards to get rid of it. So at this point I was just using all my cards, that way I could attack for game. So that's it for the replays. If you enjoy it, please click the like button. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching and have a great day.